All right, welcome everyone. We are back for our fifth edition of Live Reality Games covering Survivor Michigan, Mazed and Confused. For you that are not aware, Survivor Michigan is a series that's been going on for a minute. It is the season we're talking about is the third season, third installment of the series, and we have three guests with us tonight. For anyone who has not seen the episode yet, you may want to stop, go watch it because we are literally talking about everything that happens. So, that being said, we have a super fan with us, Naomi. Shout yourself out, girl. Tell us about you.
Hi. Oh man, I just want my only credit to be super fan, but my name is Naomi. I am the co-producer of Survivor New York, and I am a Survivor Michigan from the beginning favorite fan. I don't know, but I've been here since season 1, and I'm so excited to be here today.
All right, we are super pumped to have you. We have our regular Cooper, the current host of the series. Cooper, thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me as always.
And then we have Chloe. She is our guest for the evening, the most recent boot from the season, and we have so many questions for her. We are so happy to have you on the podcast tonight.
Thank you. I'm ready.
Good. You better be ready because we are so ready. I don't even know where to begin. Naomi, why don't you start off with something that you're dying to know from this last episode?
Well, Chloe, so I watched the pre-merge podcast that you guys did, which Cooper apparently was such a grandpa for, he couldn't make it. And I was just wondering, I wanted to know so much about your individual relationships with people, especially on your tribe, because we know that this episode really has like 3 people who end up being voted for. And you had talked about when you get voted out that it was a blind side. So I just wanted to know specifically, like Emily and Will, these people that you were in the 6 with, how did it feel to get I assume it felt bad to get voted out, but what were you feeling when that happened, and especially in relation to those guys?
I was definitely very surprised. They don't show much of my confessional that I did. Like, I filmed a producer confessional minutes before Tribal, and the producer was asking me, he's like, oh, do you feel safe this week? Like, who do you think's going home? Whatever. And the entire time, I'm like, I feel the safest I've ever been. Like, I think I'm going to be completely fine. Like, there's no way this goes wrong. I don't know why I was that cocky or what was going through my head that made me think that. But I definitely was more confident than you would expect on that tribe, considering I was literally the only person from Tafiti on that tribe. So I definitely thought I was very close with Will and Emily within that group of 6 that has no name, as Aaron points out. But they were also the people I was least close to within the 6. Mm-hmm. But just because they were part of that 6, I assumed that they would have my back, which was definitely not the reality. And I also thought that Aaron was very much at the bottom of Tormenta in the past, and also New Tormenta, which they talk about constantly. They're like, we all just really want to get rid of Aaron. That's literally all they ever want. So I'm like, Now's the time. We're either going to get rid of Sabu Sabu, who Torfiti, as we all called it, was ganging up against, or if that didn't pan out, we were going to get rid of Aaron. So I was like, if they're going for me, I'm going to be like the 4th option. Like, they probably don't even want to do that. So I definitely did not see that coming.
Yeah, and I think we'll talk about it in a little bit, but I think you're totally right in that they're telling you so much of like, you're with us, you're in our 6, here we go, we're all together, that it is really shocking that they end up going, you know what, let's get rid of Chloe. In a way, because Will and his whims are still kind of a mystery to me, but we'll get into it. But first we have to start off with like the post-idol play, Aliza and Devin, who have maybe the funniest reaction I've ever seen to an idol play, and then Emily being like, wait, you guys had an idol? And nobody is upset that Aliza lied about the idol. Everyone's thrilled. Cooper, like, talk to me a little bit about them, because we don't know much about them, but I'd love to know more about that idol play and sort of the ramifications within Sabu Sabu.
Yeah, I mean, Aliza hadn't told a soul about that. So, like, that was a shock to everybody in the game, and especially all those, like, Sabu Sabu people who she was really close with. Like, she'd held it through the Rocks Tribal and everything. So And they've been planning that whole week of like, we don't have an idol, like we're gonna have to play 2 fake idols. And so they've been like over and over, she just drilled it into them. She did not have an idol. And so yeah, then Devin obviously was at the tribal and like knew what had all happened. And then they like hang out with Emily and they're like explaining it all to her. And she is just dumbfounded. They're just like screaming at each other. And that was a hilarious video to like get uploaded and then like click on it and like go watch it like in real time. Like that was, you just see like on all their faces like, oh my God, like Aliza, but they're like happy for her. They're like, oh my God, you saved us. Not like you've been lying to me for like 4 weeks straight.
Yeah, so that's what I assumed, that if there were repercussions within the tribe that we would have probably seen them, but nobody cared. Nobody cared. Mm-hmm. I was like, I would be so mad if I was Emily and we went to Rocks or Andrew. I don't know how Andrew probably feels about that. So Chloe, you also had a lot of idol talk this episode. And what made you think that there were no idols out there? What kind of convinced you that was your mantra? That's what's going on, nothing.
I definitely thought there were other idols. I was literally just convinced that Tafiti didn't have one, which makes absolutely no sense. But I was in such denial that Brady was lying to me. Is pretty much what it comes down to, because he had the clue first. And the first clue that Emily L got, we all looked at like within a few hours, and it was completely useless. It basically said it's in dirt somewhere.
Cooper just being an absolute jerk with his clues.
The first clue is it's not on North Campus. It's in the Arb. Like we're just like, you just cover this like 10 square mile radius and you'll be fine.
Yeah, so that one was useless. But then we figured the second clue would be actually helpful, and it was. So Brady got that first, and then he sent it to us like 3 hours later and was like, I've been looking for 3 hours. Just to me and Cassie, I can't find it anywhere. This is impossible. Like, I'm convinced that like a random person on the street took it, which is something that we actually had a general concern about, because like if they're kind of in plain sight, then like why wouldn't a random person walking around campus see something and be like, what is this? I'm just gonna like I found. And I asked production, I was like, do you check that it's still there? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, I don't know.
Cooper, has an idol ever been stolen?
No, actually. We checked.
In a later season it happened.
Oh wait, which season? Was I producing for it or other?
I
think it was in 5.
Okay.
So the idea of there being 5 seasons is so exciting.
I know, I'm ready for more.
For other reasons.
Yeah, but we replaced the idol that got stolen. We do actually check. But in season 3, I was convinced that it was literally just taken away somewhere, because Brady was like, yeah, I can't find it. And I looked for so long. Like, it's in the law quad, and I live very close to that. So I walk past it on my way home from class every day. So every time I walk past it, I was like, I might as well check, even if it was like pouring or really cold or something. I'm like, I'll go look. So I searched every single tree there endlessly. I brought my roommate out. I brought my boyfriend out. They were like on their hands and knees digging through the tree, which was completely unnecessary, because I found out later it was in like the most obvious surface level spot ever. I just spent so much time looking for it. I'm like, it's impossible that it's here and I don't see it. Like maybe Kevin climbed up the top of a tree and hid it in there, as he does. So I was like, it's not there. And I did not think Brady was lying to me. But the only time that I really figured out that he probably did have the idol was after that challenge. I don't know what episode it is, but the one we're all in onesies and running around. Yeah. During that challenge, at the end of every challenge before that, producers had given an idol clue out to each tribe. And that was the first challenge where they didn't. So I was like, if they're not giving a clue, then that means it's probably already been found, or it's like irrelevant for some reason. So I thought, okay, someone found it. It must have been Brady. But I didn't really do anything about it.
That's a really good point. And I don't know, Travis, if you've noticed this, that like this episode to me is the point where like people are playing. And it was really exciting to sort of see like you come alive, Chloe, and like be super excited about how the game is going.
Absolutely. I mentioned to Cooper previously, I was like, there's a certain point in the game where like it just turns on and everyone's like they're in it to win it. And you can really start to see that it's so early. Usually it's like closer to like final 8 or something, but it really, you saw it in this past episode. I was curious, Chloe, like, tell me a little bit about like you and your history of Survivor. Like, are you a fan? Did you grow up with it? Are you someone that just like stumbled upon this? Like, how did you get connected to this? And like, what's your relationship with the show?
I definitely grew up with it. My family has been watching it together like since season 1. So my mom has like all the memorabilia from like the first few seasons and hats and canteens and buffs. Like we have that in our house. I have 2 Survivor board games that I've brought out to production a few times that we play. We call it Survivor Apartment. And it gets very intense, but I've seen every season, but I don't really know the early seasons that much because when they came out, I was like 3 or something. So I watched them, but like, was I really watching? I don't know. Yeah. So I rewatched a few of them from the early days, but I definitely am a fan.
Do you have a favorite player?
I think Todd. I don't know why it's Todd, but Todd.
Wow.
I just really like Todd. When I did my interview for Survivor Michigan, they're like, who do you want to play like? And I said a combination of Todd and Parvati, which I don't know if that panned out, but I just really liked his strategy that he described at his final tribal where he was like, yeah, I really wanted someone more powerful than me to use as a meat shield and then someone also smaller than me. And I just thought he had everything really well thought out and was a very well-deserved winner. So I always liked him.
It's fascinating. And I think that like you were sort of playing this game that like, I think people love to look at Parvati as like a mean girl in her season, but like she is just playing as hard as she can. And I think that's partially what you were doing is just, listen, we're here to play Survivor. We're not holding back, especially, if you're about to go to rocks, why hold back?
Yeah, we were stressed.
And you really didn't hold back. I mean, I thought that was emblematic of you. Like you seemed like you were really yourself. But someone's asking in the chat, like, you kind of got clumped in with Cassie. And the weird thing is, like, at least from the viewer perspective, and not knowing you guys at all, like, you to me seemed like the much bigger, predominant personality. And she seemed a little bit more behind the scenes. And then in that, like, really epic tribal council, she, like, kind of took the light a little bit. Like, I mean, you still held your own, too. But I feel like that's the moment where I felt like there was more of this lumping, like distinguish yourself from Cassie, I guess, and then talk to me about like your relationship with her. And did you feel lumped with her?
I think I was a bit, at least like from the YouTube reactions, everyone just kind of was like, oh, these are the mean girls. And I think that that's because Emily basically said, like, she pointed to the 2 of us, like, you 2 are the girls that bullied me in high school. Both of you, no one else. And we're like, okay. So I think that that's why that happened. But there was also that whole tribal, a lot of it's not shown, but Cassie was sick that whole week. And a reason that she didn't want to meet with people is because she was in urgent care like the entire week. And she's like, yeah, I didn't have time to meet with you guys. I was dying. But they still like would not accept that as an answer at all. And just kept yelling at her. And they're like, what? But why won't you make time for us? So I was just defending her a lot that time. Because I was fed up. And I think that kind of brought us closer together during that tribal too, because we were just like trying to play for the same team and make sure that everyone was being reasonable. But in terms of how I distinguish myself from her, I think we did actually play very similarly early on. We just, like, she was the first person that I contacted on day 1. Like, I literally just texted her and was like, yeah, I think that we are pretty similar people. I think we'd get along, and then we should probably pull in a 3rd person. So we decided to pull in Brady, and then I told Brady that he was the first person I contacted, and then told him to pull in Cassie, and that we just kind of formed like a 3 there. But I always thought that I was kind of at the center of that 3 because I started it, but also just because I was really close with Brady, and Cassie wasn't really that close to Brady. So I was kind of the thing that brought the 2 of them together. But then Cassie was also very close with Sarah and Dylan. So that kind of separated the 2.
How did you feel about Sarah going in the last tribal? And like, how did the news hit you of like 2 idols, 1 fake idol, Sarah's gone? What the hell happened?
I was really confused. the only person that really, I asked Brady immediately after tribal, like, what happened? Because Sarah literally just like texted in our old Safidi group chat. She was like, I'm out, and then just left the group chat. We were like,
no.
what happened? Like, we did not see that coming at all. So I asked Brady, I'm like, what on earth happened? And we were relieved because at that point, we did not trust Sarah at all since the party, which I talked about a lot in the podcast.
Yeah.
So we were really okay with it, but he was trying to describe what happened with the idols, and I don't think he understood at all what had happened and which idols were real and who used them. He was really lost. So I don't think I knew what happened at that tribal until I watched it, because I was just like, a lot happened and I went home somehow. That's pretty much all I got.
Well, because Brady was so adamant about there being no way there could be two idols because he and Ben had an idol. So I think that like messed with his head when they're like pulling these out. He's like, those aren't real. So he went from there's no way you guys have idols. And that was kind of where she had the upper hand, was she did have a real idol, just not two of them. And that's where everything just got hinky for me. I thought that was a crazy, crazy tribal.
And Cooper, I was wondering if you had any insight, because Aliza and Devin vote the way Ben tells them to vote. And that to me is bonkers, when you know that you might have the 2 votes to send someone home and you listen to Ben, who then votes against you, and then you call him and talk to him again. I love College Survivor because it is so messy. And I think this is one of a perfect example of it, like how messy everything can be. Can you like give us a little bit more into like the voting for Sarah mindset?
Yeah, so both sides, like you kind of see it, they're both talking to Ben. Like Ben is so in the middle of this tribal because Tormenta and Tafiti are working together, right? So he's obviously like playing with those people, but he's alone. He doesn't have any other Tormenta people, and he knows he's had conversations with Aliza. Like they've talked previously, like they met at the UMA kind of randomly. And so he still kind of has an in over there too. So he's trying to just work both sides of it. And it kind of works out that if the 3 of them had voted together, like none of these idols would have even needed to be played, because they would have just like, it would have been a 3-2-2 vote for whoever those 3 voted for. So they were like, if we like get Ben's vote, we don't even need an idol. So they were like, whoever you want to vote for, like we will write that name down. Like just you say the words and like we will do it. So they had to kind of give up a little power to see if they could get Ben in. And obviously he was never going to do it, but they couldn't know that in real time. So it was just kind of them like last ditch, like maybe he'll vote with us if we let him choose.
Yeah, definitely a good point.
So messy. But you want to know what's not messy? Is Chloe's room. Everyone loves this room. It's a great backdrop for
fairy lights. They do it.
Professionals. You have a few meetings in there even. And I seriously am inspired to buy these lights because I need something like that on my wall. Like Chloe, you're still at school, right?
Yes, I am.
I mean, not like this moment, but talk to me. Like, is this the exact same room that you were in 2 years ago?
The world is dying to know, Chloe.
It's actually a completely different room that I decorated in the exact same way. But Dylan moved into my past room, actually, and he lives there now. So
that's crazy.
Quite similar.
Fun fact, Dylan is now moving into the room I'm currently in.
Oh, all right. So Dylan just is drifting along.
Survivor people's rooms, basically.
We need like a voting chart of like every time Dylan has moved into someone else's room.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to highlight something that like we've kind of talked about, but I wanted to, okay, this is my thought that I had while I was watching the episode, which is that, you know, in like Real Survivor, they're like, you know, watch who people sleep with at night. That's who they're really aligned with. To me, it's like, watch who people carpool with home from challenges. That's how you know who's with who. And I just watched, like, I love the carpool so much. And Chloe, I know you had carpooled with Paddock before, and like, I'm all in on the carpool conspiracy theory, I just have to say. But like when you go on these drives with people, like do you feel more bonded to them that, you know, hey, I know I can count on them for a ride, or we can drive all night and strategize all night? Do you feel a little bit more of a sense of bonding than just meeting up for coffee? This is
I
the
think
weirdest
so.
question.
Yeah. I mean, I think after a tribal or a challenge is when people are kind of the most like raw in their emotions, ready to strategize. Let's say you do a challenge and then you lose, and then you're like, oh, I thought that I was going to be fine this week, but maybe I'm not. And suddenly you really need to figure something out in that moment, or after a tribal if something unexpected happens. Then the second you get in the car, you want to talk about it. So there would be all the time where we would carpool and it's like a 6-minute drive to my house, but we would just kind of circle the block a few times because we weren't done having our conversation. And that happened a lot. Or even if someone didn't have a car, we would just walk like endlessly for no reason because we just had a lot to say. So I think that there was always a lot of conversation happening at that moment, more so organically than if you wanted to like meet up with an individual person, because whoever you want to walk home with is the person that you most want to talk to at that time. And that really draws a line.
Cooper, what do you think is the most iconic confessional spot someone's had so far this season, or even just in the season, maybe a preview of what's to come? Or like the strangest confession?
Oh, it has to be in my bathroom at the party.
Oh, yeah.
Ben's literally peeing and Will is like filming him.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm going to count that as a confessional.
Oh, man, I had that happen to me once where like I did an org and we did a live game and we're like, I guess we're going to the bathroom together. And I was like, I just met this person. I don't know what's going on. And that's a very close bond. Yeah. And it's so sad to see Ben and Will break it.
Chloe can vouch for this. That is not a large bathroom.
Very small.
Cooper, what a mastermind idea to have everybody get absolutely ripped at your house.
Works every time. We do it every season now.
Dream. So I just want to let's focus on the challenge. Let's get on to these onesies because I know that's what everybody is dying to talk about. Chloe, what made you pick the onesie you picked?
Every onesie that was worn on my tribe belongs to Paddock because we didn't have onesies and they were just like, you need to wear costumes. And we're like, we need to what? And Paddock was like, I have 13 onesies. We're like, okay. So she just brought a whole bag of them with her. And she's like, okay, everyone grab one. I'm like, all right. So I chose the Care Bear one, which I think I was for Halloween when I was like 4. But I enjoyed it.
Oh man, now I remember I've seen Paddock in that Minion costume, so that tracks now. Yeah. I think Ben wearing a Frozen Olaf onesie is the funniest piece of content you'll have all season. Just like absolutely stuffed into this onesie. A PhD student rocking Frozen gear. So when you guys lose this challenge, first of all, Travis is like someone who's like, you know, seen games, done games. What did you think about this sort of like gaming the system of the challenge?
I always encourage creativity. I like to be really like implicit with the instructions I give. I like to be very clear, but I don't like to explore like all the boundaries and be like super rigid. I think there's a part of the game of Survivor as a whole where you're like figuring things out, you're exploring your brain, you're pushing the limits of situations. And so I like to reward that. I'm glad that they kind of, you know, went along with it because, you know, I totally saw Will's point about like, well, it's implied that you carry. I mean, if you're a super fan, yeah, that's what you've seen on the show, but they've also done variations of that challenge with cots and with sandbags. And you know, you can't assume things in Survivor. Really, that's when you get blindsided, is when you really are like, well, that's not the rules. Survivor is always changing, always evolving. And I thought it was creative. I was almost surprised that the other tribe didn't like see it real fast and just kind of adjust, but they didn't really have the same like team makeup to be able to do that.
The challenge too.
That's true. I don't think any of them would have tried.
They knew that there was a better strategy and they chose not to do it.
Cooper, how did you feel watching them pull that shit?
Oh, I thought it was hilarious. Watching those challenges is always funny from a production standpoint because like you're just wondering who else is going to catch on. So this one was it was pretty easy for them to pass off because they were like, oh, the other tribe just had a really, really good strategy. And they did, and they probably would have trounced Tormenta anyway. But the fact that it like happened in like 15 seconds and they were like going into the challenge already trying to throw it was just really funny from a production standpoint.
Chloe, did you know they were throwing it?
No, I thought that they weren't being smart. So I was just like, this is a little weird. But I honestly think with that challenge that our tribe was completely doomed to fail no matter what we would have done, just because of the composition of our tribe. Even after we got rid of Dylan on New Tafiti, they still had Brady and a lot of strong people, whereas like the strongest person in our tribe was Aaron, I think. So even if we had thought of the piggyback strategy, which was smart, I think if we had someone piggybacking on Aaron, like, we still would have lost. Like, that was how it was going to be. She's super strong, but she also has very bad knees. So
it'll get you every time.
Even if we had really tried. So I don't think there was any other outcome for that.
Damn. What an iconic, like, there are some like iconic Survivor college game challenges. I know people are harping on you about no scavenger hunt in the pre-merge, but like this one goes down in history as just like immediate, oh no.
Yeah.
So
I have to know. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go for it.
I'm just with you, Chloe. You had that oh shit moment where you're like basically switching tribes, and your whole crew is over on the other. But then you had this like kind of week of, I wouldn't say like downtime, but like you guys were safe, so you kind of had an opportunity to little like integrate yourself into the group more. But you're still an outsider, and you mentioned that in Tribal this past episode. What was your perception? Like, how did you go in and figure out, I mean, I'm sure you already had an idea of what you thought was going on, but then being in the groups, in the chats, in the car rides, I really need to know specifically about your perception of like Aaron and Emily and their relationship with each other. I know I don't want you to give too much away, but like, there's just something going on where like, it just appears like Emily has this upper hand over Aaron, but Aaron has this like unfaltering loyalty to this group that really doesn't have her back. So what was your perception?
I think I pretty much knew anything I was going to know before I joined the tribe. The way that their relationship kind of became a thing was at the party where everything happened. Erin came up to me and she was like, I have a secret or something. And I was like, okay, what's the secret? And she was like, Sarah's talking shit about you behind your back. And I'm like, okay. She was like, well, since I told you this, we should be allies because I'm telling you a secret. And I'm like, okay, who do you want to be allies with? She was like, okay, you, Brady, and Emily, because I'm really close with Emily. And I was like, and I knew already at that point that Emily did not like her. So I was just like,
that's two secrets for the price of one.
Yeah.
Oh, that is definitely something that comes out with a little liquid courage.
So she just made a group chat with the four of us. And she was like, okay, this is perfect because your closest ally is Brady and my closest ally is Emily. And I'm like, okay, that's sure. But I basically just played along with it, fully knowing me, Brady, and Emily all knowing that this was a fake alliance just to keep Aaron comfortable. So the three of us were all talking and we're just like, we're just going to do this because why say no? But it's not like we don't actually have any strong ties with Aaron. So it was just kind of there. And we all got ice cream together. And it was a very stupid conversation where we just kind of lied to each other for half an hour, fully knowing what we were doing, that made small talk. There was really no purpose to the meeting.
I mean, that's the best part of like College Survivor is you're just watching people be fake to their faces, like over it. Like you don't get that beauty of like just absolute fakeness on Real Survivor. Like, oh yeah, I'm totally excited to work with you.
Yeah, also good at it. So good at it. It's a little creepy.
So, Chloe, I had a question because you had talked about in the pre-merge podcast a little bit that you thought that Paddock was very sneaky, and I think you mentioned like text messages. I was dying to know more about that if you wanted to reveal a little bit beyond what we saw in the episode.
I will try to. It's very hard to remember the things that she did specifically, but
just open your phone, show us your text.
Lying all the time. I don't think there was a single time that she told me the truth in any moment that we ever had a conversation. But she was really good at lying. And the way that Emily just is she has this very wholesome exterior, where she like doesn't drink alcohol. She was raised by her grandparents. She has 7 siblings, and it's just like this really happy, wholesome family. And you're like, oh, she wouldn't lie to us. She's too nice. Like you just think everything's perfect. And then inside, she is constantly devious. And you're just like, oh, but no one saw that coming. So we just trusted everything she said. And it was all the time that she would just lie to someone, and then they would come to you about it, saying like, oh my God, you said this thing. And you're like, no, I didn't. But like, you could never track it back to Emily for some reason. There were just these really random fights that would come about, and no one knew the root of them. And it was always Emily. But like, I'm trying to think of a specific example where
You just can't
met
trust a girl with a Minion hoodie. That's or the Minion onesie. That's the tea here.
Yeah. There was one
Amazing.
point where she even confused production. She had made so many lies where like they had to text me specifically, and they're like, are you telling the truth? Who's telling the truth? And I'm like, not Emily. But I had met with Emily B that week, basically to make peace after the messy tribal. And I actively told people in my alliances that like, I'm meeting with Emily at this time, Emily B, and we're gonna like talk, whatever. So we did that. And then someone texted me, someone that I hadn't told, and was like, I heard that you went with Emily B 3 days ago and you didn't tell me. And at that point, I hadn't met with her yet. And I was like, no, I didn't. I'm going to. But no, I didn't meet with her. And they're like, yes, you did. You're lying to me. And I'm like,
whoa.
I literally, you can ask Emily, you can Emily B, you can ask me, like literally, I didn't meet with her yet. I have it in my schedule to meet with her tomorrow. But they did not believe me. And production was also texting me. They're like, did you meet with Emily B? And I'm like, no. And it was because Paddock was doing that. And it made absolutely no sense. She just did that all the time. She blamed Will syndrome on me. She came up with that herself. She did so many things that just like little things that wouldn't be enough for you to not trust her, but they add up. And then eventually you realize that she's been scheming you the whole time.
She blamed Will syndrome on you. That's the biggest gag here. Oh my God.
Yep, that,
Dude, that's really...
the Brady Bunch. She makes fun of that name all the time. She came up with it. I'm just like, that's you.
Okay, Cooper, how do you keep track of Emily Paddock's lies? Do you have like a spreadsheet? What do you do?
You can't. I don't know. We try to like check in with people and be like, yo, what you thinking right now? Like,
yes,
how's your game looking? So as production, we try to kind of know where people stand and like who they're good with and what they're trying to do that week. But I mean, sometimes things like there's so much texting, especially that's happening between everyone, that sometimes as even production, you can't know who's saying what to who and like track everything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we got to talk about Will syndrome now, because Chloe, I think like this weird like Will energy just totally does you in. And I really think it was a mistake to vote you out. And I think it was Will spiraling. And I don't think it was you necessarily playing a poor game or doing something wrong. It's just like this crazy spiral. So watching Will's freak out, let's call it, back, how do you feel about its effect on your game?
Oh, I blame a lot of it on Will for sure. I mean, the reason I got voted out was because of him and Paddock deciding that. And the reason that happened is because Will was convinced that I was going to vote him out the second we were like at the merge or something, which I probably might have. I don't know. But like, I felt safe in the 6th, and I was like, I would rather get rid of all of Sabu Sabu before they join the jury at least. And then maybe the 6th will crack. We don't really know. But Will really wasn't on my mind in terms of a threat at that very moment. But he absolutely thought that he was. And he was just constantly texting us about every possible scenario that he might end up going home, which of course wasn't going to happen. But he was mad about it. And then I guess he heard about Will syndrome too, thinking it was me, thinking, oh, she definitely hates me. We have to get rid of her. When that was also Paddock, who I guess put it out for me for some unknown reason. I never did anything to cross Paddock, which is the thing that confuses me. I don't know why she really wanted to get rid of me. She did write, like, on the voting ballot that she voted me out with, she wrote too much of a threat under my name. So I'm like, I guess that's why. But I don't really know to this day.
It's kind of shady voting somebody out and then writing the reason why you're voting them. Like, talks too much, you're annoying,
Yeah.
too much of a threat. That's how you know it's my vote. So, Travis, what do you agree with me? Like, was this the wrong move for Will?
I have really tried to the whole tribal is. I felt a little blindsided watching it because I feel like I don't know the way production put it together or just I mean the episodes have so much content and there's so much allusion to the idea that it's Will possibly early on in the episode and then it just seems like inevitably Aaron and then I mean Chloe gets mentioned a little bit but there's so much bouncing around and then I was curious. I assume Chloe that you voted for Aaron to make to pull off the tie, the original tie.
No.
No. So if you had voted for Aaron, she would have gone.
Did you vote for Austin?
I think I voted for Austin because I was convinced that we were targeting Sabu Sabu. That's what I
And this is why I think Will made a terrible move. And Cooper, I don't want to like force you to say too much, but like to me, the 4 of the Sabu Sabu are so dangerous that why would you take out someone who is, for all intents and purposes, like with you in theory, and is part of a tribe that like is full of big threats. So don't worry about that. I was like, Will, I don't know what you're doing, and I can't support it, but I love watching it.
Yeah. I mean, to clear that up, I think the easiest answer is, and you kind of hear Will allude to it, he feels better in that 6 of 4 Sabu Sabu, him and Emily P, than he did in the 6 of the like cross-tribe alliance.
Yeah.
And like it basically just comes down to that. He was like, which 6 do I feel more comfortable in? And it was the Sabu Sabu one.
Sure. It makes sense. Just don't think he's gonna be the Sabu Sabu.
It really doesn't make sense because you're also alienating those other people in that 6 by not telling them anything in your game plan. And I don't know, I just got this vibe. Maybe we'll see this in the next episode. I got very much like this. They make it look like Emily's with Will, but she just seems like she's on a teeter-totter. Like she's trying to figure out, is she going to go with Will or is she just collecting information from Will and feeding it back to everybody else? I think that's one of the things Emily is really good at doing is when you think about a lot of the relationships she has in the cast, they consider her close. And then really you see in her confessionals, she's like, and that kind of mentality allows you the ability to gain information from people without necessarily having to disclose a lot of your own information. And I don't really know how much information people are getting from Emily, but she is sharing it everywhere. Right. And that's causing a lot of the conflict and the paranoia. That really is what's causing the Will syndrome. Ben also is not helping that situation, but Emily being in the ear, I think, is one of the catalysts for why Will is getting like tweaky,
Chloe, so as a Survivor fan, did you like, a lot of people come in, I'm not going to lie, I'm going to play an honest game. Did you come in thinking that where you're like, I'm going to play Survivor, baby. Here we go. Like no holds barred.
I definitely did not intend to play an honest game. In my interview, one question they ask in every interview, they're like, are you going to be a hero or a villain? I was like, oh, villain. It's more fun. Like, they're more interesting on the show. So I knew that was going to happen. I just went for it.
Amazing. Also, go ahead, Travis.
I always do that. I stump people, but I need to know, did you know anybody before this season?
Yeah.
Like this school seems pretty large, and you were a freshman, so I feel like the chances of you knowing people.
Oh, you're a sophomore.
You were a sophomore. Okay, so well, just answer then. I guess. Did you like know these people? Did you have any pre-existing relationships or anything like that?
I did not know a single person. We did not have a single mutual friend. There was nothing going in.
So what brought you into applying and playing? Is it just the love of the game?
Yeah, I mean, they just posted it on Facebook And I was like, oh, sounds fun. Cool way to meet people. Sounds really interesting. Went for it and worked out. Now they're all my best friends.
Yeah, now where you're at 2 years later.
God.
Who are you still really close with? You know, like who are there people that you still hang out with regularly or talk to a lot?
This is interesting.
Yeah. Absolutely. Is it interesting? What's on your mind, Cooper?
I mean, I just know who the first two people are you're going to say.
Oh, well, yeah. Brady and Aaron are literally my best friends in the world. Like,
Incredible.
Emily actually coined the line that we are the triplet that can't be separated, and we hang out constantly. Brady's in Missouri right now, so I'm not seeing him at the moment, but like Aaron's coming to my house in an hour. I see her pretty much every day. We had a rule in my house that every person was allowed one person that was allowed to come over during quarantine so that we could like keep our circle small. And I chose Aaron. I'm like, she's
that's so cute
right now.
That melts my heart.
We're very close, absolutely. And then really most people from the season and prior seasons and future seasons, we're all very close. The Survivor community has become this giant family. And we just like, Cooper's house is like our home unit where we can all just go there and feel at home. People just
Cooper's house is Ponderosa, basically. Like everybody's just drunk there and like just having fun.
Yeah, it's really great to hear that people come together because I think the perception can be sometimes that it's heated and you know you're getting little clips of something that's going on for months, you know, from all these different angles, from through a phone, through face-to-face conversations. There are things that don't get filmed that happen, you know. There's so many elements like that that I think it's important that people see the complexity of the relationships that you build and that it really does become almost like a family thing where you can get on each other's nerves and you get annoyed or bothered at times, but you have these people's backs too, and you really grow to appreciate them because you get to know really like deep versions of these people. Do you feel like I'm correct in that assessment?
Yeah.
And I think I'm like 90% sure I asked this, and I probably sent it in like really tired late at night, but like I'm pretty sure for the pre-merge recap podcast, I asked the question like, what did Survivor teach you about yourself? Because like as a producer of these games, I love watching people walk away having learned something. I mean, I've learned tons of stuff about myself playing live games. And Chloe, I thought you had a really interesting answer when you talked about it, and people should go watch that podcast back. But Survivor, especially as a fan, did you have your sort of expectations turned on its head of like what it's actually like to play, or did you feel like you knew what it was like to play, but you also got this really nice experience out of it?
I think I definitely got more invested than I anticipated. I mean, I figured like if this were CBS Survivor, then I would be all in. I'm on an island, like you're doing it. But in college, I was like, oh, we don't live together. Aaron commented.
Hi, Aaron.
So I was like, oh, we don't live together. We're not going to see each other that often. We're just going to be texting. Like, I really didn't expect it to be more than like a 2 to 3 hour commitment every week. Love you, Aaron.
We have Aaron in the chat, guys.
But it absolutely takes over your life. Like, I literally spend, even today on production, I'm constantly doing Survivor things, like just meeting up to make random puzzles for challenges or talking about whatever drama is happening. Like it becomes everything that you do.
Yeah. Those 2 a.m. texts are like, I have a great idea for a puzzle. Okay, I'll tell you about it in the morning. Like, don't let me forget. Yeah. So I was wondering, Cooper, if you could walk us through like the Holy Shit Alliance a little bit more and like why you think that Savu Savu is so willing to trust Will and Paddock in particular.
I think they would have taken anything they could have gotten at that point. But I think it ended up being Will and Paddock because of that Eliza and Will relationship. I think Will had been promising Eliza so many times over and over and over. I'm gonna work with you. I'm gonna work with you. Like we're gonna work together eventually. And he saw an opportunity that he was at the bottom of his current alliance, or so he thought. That's how he perceived it. And he was like, this is my chance to now flip the game. I have Austin, I have Emily on my tribe that I can. Thanks, Aaron. I don't know. It's hot in this room. Does that count? Yeah, but I think Aliza and Will absolutely had that first connection, and Will jumped on the opportunity of, I now have a couple more numbers that I can pull in that I know are working with Aliza, that I know will stick with me for a bit. So just kind of happened.
Yeah, I mean, and like I love Ben and Aliza like talking about their Jew alliance made me laugh really hard, but I feel like it's those weird like quirky relationships you come across at the beginning of the game that like carry so far into the end game, whether or not you're on a tribe together. That's what I love about College Survivor too, like the ability to cross tribal lines and not have any repercussions for it and get to strategize beyond your little 6-person tribe.
I love knowing whether or not like the contestants are aware that there's a fan base outside of the school, and like also the knowledge of like these games existing at other colleges and even beyond that. Like, Chloe, you knew that this was going on at Michigan, but did you know this was going on at any other schools, or had you heard of this concept of live games? What is your understanding of it even right now?
I definitely didn't know anything about it when I went into it. When I did the interview, they told us, like, if you want to know more about College Survivor, like, go look up College Survivor Maryland, and like you'll learn a lot more about it. And I did that, but I just didn't have the time at the time to really watch it through. So I went in pretty blind. And season 1 hadn't come out yet of Michigan when we were filming. So I really had no reference point for what Michigan Survivor was going to look like, because it was just completely in production mode at that point. So I really did not know what to expect at all. But now I know a lot more about it. I still haven't really watched any other College Survivors, but I've heard about them. I've played a few random like online games and such. So I definitely know more about the whole unit that it is, but I still haven't really watched much of it other than Survivor Michigan.
I think it's so neat that we have the opportunity to just peek in on like this thing that's going on in a whole different part of the world, part of the country. And sometimes it can be really hard to dive into a season where you just don't know anybody, you're not invested in it. I remember being asked to kind of like watch this series, and I was like, okay, I haven't done that in a minute. I have to say, this season 3, like, nom 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 nom. Like, it did not take me but 3 minutes to just be totally into the cast, super invested. And Cooper, like, kudos to you. I'm assuming that you guys have like a application or interview process, or like, going through and deciding what you want a cast to look like. I mean, you had 3 Emilys in one season, and they're still all like really crazy cool people. So what's your criteria for casting? How did you pick Chloe?
Emily.
Chloe was actually one of the first people cast.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
But oh my God, so I guess our casting process, we basically try to get our application out as many different ways as possible and just have a huge pool to choose from. And we try to make them like interesting questions. We don't want this to be like a job interview at all, like not even close. We want to mostly gauge people's like commitment. How like committed are you going to be time-wise to this, and like how entertaining are you going to be for the show, and how competitive are you? Like, and do you know Survivor? Like, are you going to try to win? Do you care about winning? So I think those are kind of the criteria we use, and we base our questions so that you, as you're applying, you don't really know what we're getting at, but through your answers, we can a lot of times tell what kind of person you are, and if we want you, and if we like you for the cast. So, and I think season 3 especially, we absolutely like had so many good people apply. Like, this cast was unbelievable. You see it top to bottom, like every single person's confessionals are entertaining. Like, literally every single person in this cast.
Yeah.
Is Dylan like that in real life? I have to know. Like, I can imagine, yes, but
yeah.
Fantastic.
And Cooper, I highly suggest, I love asking, like, are you a David or a Goliath? And people are like, oh, it's going to be David. It's not David versus Goliath season. Get out of here. You think we'd give that away in the application? But, like, I love making people speculate just from the questions you ask them about getting into your game.
Yeah.
I think we time to move on to tribal council, right? Unless we have anything else we're thinking about. But well, actually, you know what? We haven't even talked about the entire text message drama that like avalanches into Chloe going home. So if I'm correct, this is a screenshot of a text from Chloe that is sent to the 6, which then goes to Austin, and it goes into the Austin the Holy Shit Alliance group chat. And then from the Holy Shit Alliance group chat, Austin shows it to Aaron, who goes, "What the hell is this?"
God.
And everything explodes. So, Chloe, did you hear about this kind of setting off? And how did you feel with Will being like, "This is all Chloe's fault"?
I honestly don't think I even knew about it at the time that they found out about the sex. I definitely thought it was a secret by the time I got voted out. So I did not know about that. But I think a big fault of mine in general was taking screenshots of too many things. I didn't even know it was mine that set it off, but it sounds about right. Because it happened all the time that I would there was one time where I took a screenshot of me and Ben's conversation, and I was going to send that screenshot to Brady, but I accidentally just sent it back to Ben. And he was like, "Why'd you take a screenshot of that? Who are you going to send it to?"
That's the worst person.
Yeah, that's my nightmare.
So yeah, things like that made me realize that if I were to ever do something like this again, you should only communicate in Snapchat or in person where it just disappears, because I took way too many screenshots.
Cooper, do you have some hilarious screenshots on your phone? Like people will be like, "Oh, this is what someone's saying to me. Look at this."
I'm sure back when I played,
yeah.
I mean, you try not to take screenshots, but to the people you really trust, it's just the easiest and fastest way to give them information that other people have given you. So I'm sure I have some stuff. I don't think anything's really coming to me off the top of my head, but yeah, I don't know. Because most of the really, really important stuff, you pick up the phone and you call. You just don't even risk it. I think people, if you've seen college survivors now, the people that now play them are so paranoid about anything over text that you just you pick up the phone and call. That's just a given.
See, I would FaceTime everybody because you don't know who's in the room.
True, that too.
Yeah.
And you want to see, because some people could be like, "Yeah, I'm totally into it." You know?
Yeah, okay, I'll vote with you.
Yeah.
So you don't, Chloe, you don't have any idea about this whole text message explosion. Cooper, do you have any sort of insight into it? Anything to add on to it before we get to actual tribal?
It was hard to explain in the episode how ticked off this made Aaron, because from her perspective, she was in a super tight alliance with Paddock and Will and Ben, and she also kind of had this thing with Chloe and Brady and Paddock. So in her mind, she's I'm playing both alliances, I'm on top of this, I feel really good in this. And then all of a sudden, all of these people are in this other group chat behind her back that that just her mind was just broken. She was this makes no sense for how I am currently seeing the game. And so she immediately was just I'm totally on board to vote Chloe. I will vote Chloe. What the hell is this? Chloe's supposed to be in an alliance with me. And she was also pissed off at some of the people who then she ended up voting with, like Will, and she doesn't really know that Paddock is involved, but this just kind of sets off Aaron's alarm bells of this is not good. I thought I was in a really good spot, and all of a sudden I am not. So I think it just sent her to panic, basically.
Travis, how do you feel going into the merge knowing that Aaron is ready to punch someone in the face for leaving her out of things?
I'm really excited to see it. I'm also kind of a little bit kind of stunned that took to this moment, because there's the Jessie element. She's very quiet and in the background right now. And I don't know, anybody that can do math or count knows we watched that cringy hangout party where basically Jessie denies voting for Aaron, and it's math, I didn't vote for myself, so I just think I'm really curious. Jessie just seems she's just trying to kind of squeak through, and it really seemed like a missed opportunity. But once again, I feel Aaron has these blinders on of I'm not working with her because she voted me out. You know, she was just very like, I'm done with that person. But I'm also like, if Erin's going to go into merge ready to blow things up, she's going to really need to evaluate who are the people that can help her do that, because that's a big group. Like you're going to need some dynamite to do that, or you're going to have to get them to turn on each other, you know? And I don't know if Erin's going to be able to do that. She has a lot of information, but I just don't know who she's thinking she's loyal to after that vote.
Right. Who wants the information? Because are we going in 4-4-4? I'm bad at math, so I don't do it. So are we going in 4-4-4?
5 Tormenta, 4 Savu Savu, and 3 Tafiti now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a super interesting number breakdown, because you have Erin at the bottom of the 5. You have the Savu Savu who know that their ass is on the line, and you have the Tafiti who are just been bamboozled like 2 tribal councils in a row. I have no idea what's going on anymore. Just like, at least Brady has his idol. I don't know. Oh my gosh. So we get to tribal council. Oh, someone go ahead.
You're good.
Too much. So we get to tribal council, and Will's paranoia is such a big topic. I can't tell if Will thinks it's funny or not. Like, I don't know if Will actually is laughing at himself, or is he just, the paranoia gets even bigger every time someone comments on it.
I think he did think it was kind of funny. I think a part of him was like, oh, that's so annoying that people like think this about me. But then I think he was also like, well, at this point I can't really change it, so I'm just gonna laugh about it, because I think it was a little of both. I think he was annoyed that it had like come up like that, but it was something he was willing to laugh at too. He didn't like try to deny it and be like, no, I'm not paranoid. Like, I think he deep down knows that like he's like frazzled and just thinking and like running worst case scenarios all the time.
Chloe, what did you think the plan was going into tribal?
I voted for Austin, so I would say I think it was Austin. I definitely thought we were targeting Savu Savu completely.
Yeah. Was it going to be everybody on Austin? Did you think about like a vote, because he has this extra vote? Not that it matters too much, but
I think it was
another idol.
Yeah, except Emily B. I thought she would stay on his side because they were the only two from Savu Savu. But I thought that everyone from previous Tormenta would vote with me for Austin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you see it early in the episode where it's a lot of that like cross tribe alliance, and Chloe, I think you were the one that said like, all right, we're just doing 5 on Austin, and then like that's basically like the strategy we get from you this episode, because everything else is happening behind your back, and you're just like, it's Austin all week. So yeah, I think the plan was like the 5 of them were just voting Austin, and like that's what it was, and so there wasn't a lot of Chloe this episode, sadly, because it was. All of her confessionals were like, it's Austin this week. Like, it's fine.
We're going to get the It's Austin compilation next. It's Austin. Oh my gosh. So, Chloe, how did it like feel to realize, well, first of all, the tie hits and it's Erin. It's not Austin, it's Erin. Were you like, oh, I'm boned. This is it. See you later. Or did you try and like appeal to anybody, say anything to anyone when you realized that it was a tie?
I pretty much knew it was going to be me. I mean, I figured there's no way that Austin and Emily B will be on my side in a revote, because I knew that Emily B at least had a pact against me. So I was like, that's not happening. And then I figured the reason it was a tie is because Paddock and Will flipped against me. So I'm like, they're not going to flip back. But Erin was definitely incredibly stressed. I was surprised. She drove me home after that. It was just the 2 of us. But
that's like
both of us.
Sarah said in the post-merge podcast that she was filming like Brady after she got voted out. Did you film Erin after you got voted out?
I don't think I did. She was in such shock. She was not going to talk. Like, she was just sad. But literally, I got voted out, and I like yelled from the parking lot. I'm like, you still going to drive me home? And she's like, yeah. But
well, Erin didn't flip on you.
Yeah.
Oh man. Kind of. But she's still a good friend. Yeah. And that's what matters. Sure. Travis, is there anything else that you were thinking about with this tribal?
Yeah, I was just like, once again, with the whole Erin thing, like, coulda, woulda, shoulda. Do you feel like, I mean, you're letting me know that you and Erin are super tight now. Like, do you feel like there were times where you were like, I really want to do something with this person, but there's just no way to make it happen? Or was your mind pretty much like made up? Like, these are the people I'm working with, and that's that.
I think I definitely prioritized Tafiti just because we had a lot of tribe loyalty at that point. We had just gone to Rocks where like we are close and nothing's going to break that. But then my thing with Erin, I was open to working with her, but I knew that if I did, I wouldn't be able to prioritize her because she was at the bottom of New Tormenta. Like literally all anyone would ever talk about on Tormenta was how she was at the bottom and that they wanted to get rid of her. And I was like, I can't save her by myself. It's not going to happen. So I thought it was kind of a lost cause, really.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you think like missing the merge game, like how do you think your game would have been different? You know, we saw you as a team player, but as like Chloe the individual, what would your game have started to look like?
I think I definitely would have gone a lot further if I had made merge. I mean, I know that if I were even just on the other tribe at the swap and I wasn't singled out as the only one on New Tormenta, then I would have been fine because I know like Brady was not going to target me anytime soon. And Ben was mostly with me. And Dylan was also like pretty neutral. Like we really weren't worried about Dylan. So I figured that if those people from Tafiti made it to merge, then we would be completely fine together. I expected Torfiti to all gang up on Sabu Sabu and then probably trickle down to the 6. So I don't really know exactly what would have happened, but I think that I would have survived a good amount longer because I didn't really make any enemies other than Sabu Sabu, and there were not that many of them.
Right. It's a good point. And it is like, I remember being like, they're going for Chloe. I'm just not understanding the first time I watched this. Like, where is this coming from? And it only took the second time around to really sort of piece it together. And I think if anybody hasn't watched this episode again, you should totally do so because it really like everything starts to make a lot of sense. And it's mostly because Will is just talking for like an hour straight, but it's great. And everything he says is hilarious. It's just that you're like, I don't know what's going on.
The game happens so fast this season that you almost like putting together these episodes and trying to cram everything that like happens into even like 50 minutes or an hour is so hard because you want to try to tell the whole story of what happened throughout the week. But like there are so many people playing that like trying to include everybody's moves and make it make sense, not only for this episode, but then moving forward and who's close to who and who's doing what. Like it felt like this is going to be such a weird comparison. And it felt like Winners at War sometimes where you would go into stuff and you'd be like, who is working with who? Like, tell me, like, and they had to cram it into like 40 minutes. Like, that's how I felt trying to like help season 3 was like, this is impossible to tell the story of this week and the complexity of all the gameplay in this like short amount of time.
Yeah.
50-minute long episodes. And so what does your editing team look like? Because I want to keep talking to Chloe, so I want to get to the part where you get voted out. But what does your editing team look like, and how does that edit come together?
Yeah, so we have one main editor, Ian, and then we also have kind of, I would say, 4 other current editors that also, I mean, I'll give them shout outs. Adam, Brent, Mary, and TK all do a great job. And they all help kind of put the actual, like using the actual software and putting it all together. And when we have so many people behind the scenes that are helping watch all the videos, summarize the videos, storyboard episodes, and put everything together. So it's a whole team and a whole process.
You guys could be your own like college credit, like
yeah,
just be like editing Survivor 101, and I would take that.
Like if there's other college Survivor people out there that are like, how do we start this editing process? Like obviously, like please reach out to us. Like we are more than happy to help. We love seeing other good college survivors. So.
Yeah, I mean, the way the spread is fantastic, and I really think that you guys are like helping it continue. Survivor Maryland cannot bear the weight all on its own. So I also
the whole point of live reality games is to try to connect these different communities together because it really just becomes an explosion. Like, could you imagine a Michigan versus Maryland post graduate season. Like, this is the kind of stuff that I daydream about.
We
But
need a drama. It's like
It's
BB
been-
All Stars. Did you say it's been talked about?
And talked about.
Cooper, don't you dare do this to me.
You may one of these summers find a shorter filmed game between some college survivors. It's definitely been thrown around in the community.
cool.
All right, I'm not going to freak out about that. I'm just going to be very calm right now. No, so I also wanted to pitch my alternate episode title, which was I didn't know piggyback rides were kosher. I think fantastic quote. Should have been the episode title, but it's fine. Chloe, just to like summarize your game, like what did you feel? Let's say there's an All Stars, and let's say you came back. What would you want to do the next time? What did you feel like you didn't get done?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I didn't really get much done at all since I got out so early. I don't really think there's a whole lot that I could come up with. But for example, we played an online season immediately after season 4. We do like 0.5 seasons in between every season. And it's usually the same people playing all over again. So season 4.5 was like a mixture of seasons 1 through 4, but it was mostly 3. And I won that. So that was like my number one allies were Aaron and Emily B. And Emily B and I working together was like this big, like no one will see it coming. Everyone thinks we still hate each other. And we didn't. So that's actually how I became pretty close to Emily B later on, is we worked together that whole game and made it to Final Tribal together. But that was very interesting to do just because it was pretty much most of the same people, but I had more control in that situation. So that was fun to come around with.
Definitely. I mean, congratulations.
Thank you. Cooper's better that he got voted out.
Don't talk.
You can't vote out the host.
Always blame Kevin. Always blame Kevin.
Kevin saved me.
I know Kevin.
Kevin his whole game to save me.
Aaron was robbed. And listen, Survivor Michigan Sequester, I don't know if you guys have thought about it. You should think about it. A Sequester mini. I think that would be its own like
That would
mini
be
season.
something else for sure.
Oh my god, I would love that so much. Is there anything anyone else has to wrap up about? We've been here for an hour. I'm sure some people will want to eat dinner, unless you're in Central Time. I don't know. This is up to you. But besides the sentiment of Aaron was robbed, does anybody have anything else to say?
No.
No.
Not really.
I'm pumped for merge. I have loved every episode. They've gotten better one after the other, and now this merge looks epic. I know you guys can't spoil anything, but you always put a little teaser in, and this like mounting Will versus Ben saga, I am all for. We talked a little bit last podcast about the Mean Boys, and I feel like, it's all in jest, but I really feel like we're going to see the claws come out with Ben and Will very soon.
Yeah.
Yep.
How long is the episode? How long is it, Cooper? 2 hours?
2 hours.
Standard hour.
Fine. I cut you off though. What were you gonna say?
Oh, this episode, oh my god. Not that all of them. I could say this literally about every episode, but this one is so good. It's so good. If you have not seen the claws come out in Ben or Will yet, like if you think you've like seen anything, like just wait for like future.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Oh my god.
Chloe, thank you so much for joining us. It's a real pleasure to talk to you and get to know more about you and your game and your love of Survivor.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Did anybody follow you anywhere? Do you want the internet to know who you are?
Do you want to be followed?
Chloe's like,
I'm good without it.
Oh, hilarious. Well, you can follow Live Reality Games on Facebook, which is probably where you're watching this, if you're watching. And make sure to check out the Michigan group, because there's a whole group dedicated to actually talking about Michigan. And there's also these live reality game casting groups, because casting has started up for a bunch of games in the future, way down the line, including Surviving Reelfoot, which is very exciting. So if you want to be in the woods for 7 days sometime in 2021, hit them up. You can follow me on Instagram at Naomi. And don't follow me on Twitter.
And stay tuned for this upcoming episode. It's coming on Wednesday at 8 p.m. And I know I will be watching it live in real time. And then next week we will be back here to talk it out with the next victim, I think. So I am beyond excited to see who it is, because Merge can really truly be anyone.
I can't wait. I'm ready for the emotional trauma.
Oh, there will be. There will be.
Whew. Cooper, thank you so much for being here again.
Yeah, thanks for having me as always.
Well, thank you guys, and we are gonna head out. See you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.